Now we come to a very interesting section on the future passenger rolling stock for India. The speaker today is Mr. Sudhanshu, who is the GM of ICF, and the moderator for the session is Ajay Singh. And Ajay Singh is also one of the founder members of the Rail Enthusiast Society. He is a serving railwayman and currently working on the South Western Railway, one of the Indian Railways. With a passion for rail photography, he has a massive collection of pictures that he has shot of the railway in all aspects. Among his railway assignments in the past was the responsibility for the Heritage Steam Shed at Rewari. The Heritage Steam Shed at Rewari, where 12 vintage locomotives, including the famed Fairy Queen, are being maintained. Over to Ajay and Shri Sudhanshu. Thank you.
Thank you, Pandey sir. Am I audible?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay. My speaker is Mr. Sudhanshu Mani. I think the name doesn't need an introduction, at least for the Indian rail fans. The name is now synonymous with the Vande, that is Train 18. He has he had an action-packed career of 38 years with Indian Railways. He's a technocrat par excellence. He has proved that even in a government system, it is possible to make incredible delivery like a mainline train, the Train 18. As I mentioned, actually Train 18 is a wonder in engineering terms. It is the first time in India that a train project of this magnitude was executed from concept to manufacturing. And probably it is a world record that this has been done within a very short time frame of 18 months. The two trains have performed for over 3 years now without disruption, which is a testimony to the design and manufacturing excellence of the trains. Interestingly, besides being an excellent technocrat, he's a connoisseur of art. His art camps in Bangalore and Chennai, and his deep understanding of the bard, Shakespeare, and poet philosophers, Ghalib and Kabir is amazing. He's a true lover of art, theater, comedy, rock music from 60s and 70s, and Urdu poetry. Having been the project lead for the Train 18, I think he's the best person to talk about the topic of this global conference, that is the railways of the future, at least in the Indian context. He'll be covering basically how the idea of the train was born, and how the team at ICF at that time went ahead and produced the train within a record number of time. I'll not take much of your time. I request Mani sir to kindly start his presentation. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon to all the rail enthusiasts from Chennai, which was my karma bhumi before I stopped being an active railwayman. Of course, otherwise, me and all of you are railwaymen for life. So am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, very much.
Okay, so Ajay, you have given me the share screen authority, I guess. So you can see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Ajay?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I'll just move the slide 1 to make sure it's moving in the presentation mode. It is, right?
Yes, sir.
What you
Yes,
see
sir.
is the test.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So as Ajay told you, I'll try to speak to you about what would be my vision of the future of passenger rolling stock in India. I come to you as a railwayman, to all you railwaymen, and all of you would agree that Indian Railways is an institution which you love it or hate it. In the context of our country, it's not an organization you can afford to ignore. Not a great speaker, so Ajay has already stolen that thunder of mine, but I do borrow a lot from the wisdom down the ages. My great uncle Kabir, my grand uncle Shakespeare, the Elizabethan uncle, and my latest uncle Ghalib from Delhi. I will try some humor if possible. Unfortunately for you and fortunately for me, I have an inherent right as a railwayman to be derailed. So any attempt by anyone trying to derail me will not work. Of course, fortunately for you and unfortunately for me, we have this hawk-like Ajay Singh keeping a check on where I go and how long I go. Because there is a time regime, so here I start, which is something like a quasi Sarkari presentation. Indian Railways. Legacy history of 170 years. You would remember the scramble for that window seat as the marvel and the magic of India passed you by. The hard work, the grind, the indolence, the sloth, the mourning, the celebration, the joy, the pathos, the mountains, the valleys, the streams, the deserts, never-ending fields. Something you can see only from a train window. As you peeped behind an open door of our coaches, a snaking train behind you always gave you goosebumps. An Indian Railway still is a great leveler. Unlike an airport or a bus station, a platform of an Indian railway station is where the richest to the poorest still stand next to each other to catch the same train, maybe not the same class. It's reminded of my uncle in The Tempest when Antonio says that the travelers never did lie, though fools back home condemn them. Because the fantastical things that you see from the window of an Indian Railways train, and if you don't appreciate it, friends, you are perhaps a prisoner of your own contradictions and your own confines of your mind. There is a poet from Lucknow called Majaz, and incidentally, Ajay Singh introduced me to this, and it's become a lifelong favorite of mine. I hope I will not need to translate it, but if Ajay says I will. डालती बेहिस चट्टानों पे हकारत की नजर, हकारत means disdain, कोह पर हंसती हुई फलक को, फलक means the sky, फलक को आंख दिखलाती हुई, दामने तारीकी शब की उड़ाती धज्जियां, तारीकी means darkness. So the title of the poem is Raat aur Rail. कि दामन तारीकी शब की उड़ाती धज्जियां कसर जुल्मत पर मुसलसल तीर बरसाती हुई, अलगरज उड़ती चली जाती है बेखौफ व खतर, शायर आतिश नफस, that poet with that burning sense of converting facts into poetry. शायर आतिश नफस का खून खौलाती. Well, talking about romance of Indian Railways is like bringing coal to Newcastle as long as I'm speaking to you. Because for you, gentlemen, it's a matter of the heart, not so much of the mind. Because if you start applying your mind to what Indian Railways does, half your romance, half your love would be lost. My uncle Ghalib has already covered it in a way when he says, दिल तो हो अच्छा, नहीं है अगर दिमाग, कुछ तो असबाबे तमन्ना चाहिए. There is something you need to keep your desires in respect of Indian Railways alive. But I'm not here to talk about these romance, because for last 70 years, I'm not even going before independence. In spite of bringing some AC trains and German technology, why is it the recall of our trains remains the same? The color has changed from Gulf red to blue, but a typical Indian Railways is what you see on the screen. It has not changed its face for 70 years. एक जैसे लग रहे हैं सब सभी चेहरे मुझे, होश की ये इंतहा है या बहुत नशे में हूं। नहीं भाई, ये रियलिटी है। Why not a modern, aesthetically superior, technologically advanced, higher speed train? Just why not? Romance is fine, but a large part of our railways, why do we have what you see on the left of your screen? Is this a resurgent nation? Is this how we are going to carry our people? Something you see on the screen on the right was an attempt, I would say half-hearted with good intention. Before I go to what I see the vision of Indian Railways, I'll slightly go into the spirit of Atmanirbhar, the buzz word today. It all started in 2014 with thrust on Make in India to make India a global manufacturing hub. Manufacturing, mind you. And then came COVID and it was transitioned into Atmanirbhar. And the idea was that these lions of Make in India would roar into self-reliance. Atmanirbharta. But barring occasional purrs, have we seen the roar? And why not? Because we fail to appreciate the spirit of Atmanirbharta. Well, there have been talk about fiscal stimulus, profitability of investment projects, demand in the market, and so on, credit deposit ratio. It's not all for economists to talk about. I'll skip that because I'm not an expert there. But I will speak about the essence of Atmanirbhar and what is that. Before that, an idea which converts into a concept and then is tested in the market employing in the market, and whether it's a product, process, or any concept or anything, or a combination that is activated and has an outcome of value, would complete a cycle of innovation. And while doing this, without going into the semantics here and definition of technology, I would only say, with that innovation, a generation of a systemic knowledge to manufacture, construct, or put together any product or service, any idea, which has an input, expertise, methods, processes, allied equipment, machinery, plant, and artistry, is what is technology. The component of innovation in it. And then, having developed it, you need the environment and the ecosystem to manage it. And importantly, with a sense of pride and the ownership. Ownership would bring pride, and that's what takes you to do things far beyond the ordinary. And that's what, good or bad, to my mind, is what is going to make you Atmanirbhar. So I'll touch upon the concept Indian Railway has used since for the last 70 years of all, and I've been associated with most of them, fortunately. So ALCOs, EMDs in field of diesels, ABB for electric locos, LHB for coaches, Gottwald for cranes. You ordered a lot. Then CKD, PKD kits. You start manufacturing after 3-4 years of transfer of drawing, specification, and protocols, and so on. Maybe classroom lectures, maybe a visit, Videsh. Ghum ke bhi aao aap unke yahan, all that you do. But you still don't make the locomotive or the coach or the crane or whatever to the standard at which you imported. And why is that? Because technology, as I told you, gentlemen and ladies, is a matter of creation. It lives in the mind, and more than that, in the heart of the creator. There's no technology to transfer that technology from the mind and heart of the creator. So it can never be transferred. And I would say it will always remain an oxymoron. If you don't create your own technology, you will remain a net importer of technology for ages to come. Every 15 years, you will be where you were 15 years back, and then you will scramble to go and invent technology. I heard with interest the Japanese gentleman who was speaking about Shinkansen. Go back to 50s for Japan and maybe late 90s, 2000s for China. They also started in a similar manner. But they are a net, Japan is far behind, but even China today is a manufacturer, is a creator of technology today. And are we riding that path even today? Not to my mind. Remember, my great favorite poet Firakh has said, "Mere sher aina khane mein teri beshumar adaon ke." My poetry sings a lot about my creation or this creation of God in your praise, but aisi bhi hai koi ada jo rahegi seena-e-raz mein. But there are things, there are styles which would remain in my heart. It will not be conveyed to everyone through my poetry. And that's the essence. That's what would come to you if you create your own technology with ownership. Good or bad, it's a stepping stone to something better in the future. You may fail, you may make a shoddy product, but own it and let it be entirely yours. And I will tell you why you should be wise and not foolish in that area, but that later. Whatever you can create, challenge yourself 10, 100, 110, 120% over that and create your own. Even if it's bad, that failure will propel you to a successful product in the future, but somewhere you have to start. I will come to the nitty-gritty of the talk as to what all do we have in terms of passenger rolling stock in the country today. You have Indian Railways, of course. The majority, you have metros, you have light rails being talked about, you have high-speed rail under execution for one product. We have rapid rail transit systems coming up. There is talk about Hyperloop. There's talk about hydrogen trains. But first about Indian Railways. So we have a common budget. There's a lot of concern about the financial performance of railways and its self-sustenance. There's a lot which can be said as to why railways are in dire straits, but I will not do that because that's a separate subject. What I'm trying to tell you, if you look at the screen, our revenue is growing at the rate of 2%, whereas the investment in railways by the government since 2014 is leaving by leaps and bounds. So government is not a fool. I would think that it doesn't make a sense. It makes sense that you invest so much. From 50,000 crores, you are reaching 2.5 lakh crores investment in railways, where there are hardly any returns. I would like to think here that this government's plan is to invest in railways for the larger good of the economy. They must have it in their mind. So we will take it as given and not quibble about it and see how it's going to help. The discussion whether it's correct or not is for some other day. You can always say, like my uncle would have said, कि खर्ज की पीते थे मैं और ये समझते थे कि हाँ रंग लाएगी हमारी फाका मस्ती एक दिन. I was drinking with borrowed money with the fond hope that my profligacy would bring me prosperity someday. We leave it at that, but with the comfort that the government is ready to invest heavily in the rail sector today. So what have we seen recently? We have seen this, what you see on the screen is an announcement of 400 rakes of Vande Bharat train 18. a fairly large number for MUTP and other EMUs. Acquisition of cargo liner. I'll come to that later, something new. Hydrogen power trains and freight EMUs. We will talk about two things first, the 400 rakes of Vande Bharat, and my favorite subject of today is how Indians are going to travel in future. But before that, you would remember what I put on the screen in terms of what Portia said. So 400 rakes, 800 rakes, 1,000 rakes or whatever. The fact is that 2 rakes were made in 2018 and we are in 2022 and third one is perhaps in sight, but nowhere there. So to do is perhaps not easy as to know what we're good to do. Otherwise, what the Bard said. To some extent, also दिन रात तुम्हारी महफिल में दिन रात की बातें होती हैं, कुछ बात नहीं होती लेकिन बेबात की बातें होती हैं, जिस बात की बातें होती हैं उस बात की कोई बात नहीं, जिस बात की कोई बात नहीं उस बात की बातें होती हैं, लेकिन अब जिस बात में इतनी बात बढ़ी उस बात में कोई बात न थी, जब बात पे बात आ जाती है तब बात की बातें होती हैं. I would assume कि अब बात की बातें हो रही हैं. So now the question is not whether it will happen. The question is how would it happen? Taking this announcement as the intention of the government, no use quibbling. गलत सही है, होगा कि नहीं होगा, कब होगा. Only question now is how will it be done? What I would like to tell all of you, is first, picture how Indians would travel in 2035.
अरे सर बोरिंग मत पढ़ाओ ना, सुबह पनवे निकलना है.
Okay, so somebody is saying something which I'm not sure it concerns me, but that apart. Okay, so you would like all Indians to travel the way they do today. It's not a question of what's possible. It's not a question of ye kya baat aap kar rahe ho. The moment I say all Indians should travel in AC trains, I get response on social media ki ye aadmi pagal jaisi baatein kar raha hai. It's not that. First you have to, how, when, and all that is later. First thing is to make up your mind whether a resurgent nation with pretensions to be some kind of a world power in 2035. Well, 2035 to 2040, which choose your date. Is it really going to permit its people to travel like sardines packed in coaches? To travel like cattle, if I may say? No. I have to give air-conditioned comfort to everyone who travels in Indian Railways. Now you have to decide how will it be possible. So I'll give you small examples, not going into details here. For example, AC3 is profitable. AC chair car is profitable. So AC3 is converted into AC3 economy or something with increasing, if I remember correctly, 9 or 11 more seats and so on, and fare reduced by whatever percentage. As a coach manufacturer, let me tell you that it's possible to make AC3 tier crammed accommodation but air conditioned for more and more people. Bring down the fare by 30 to 40% and it would still remain profitable. And same with chair car. You can pack in a whole lot of people. And that's what it should be aimed. And to do that, non-AC coaches manufacture should be stopped forthwith. I was so disappointed to see that even in this year's production program, at least 400-500 non-AC coaches would be manufactured. There was some intention of government that only AC coaches, but it's not happening. It has to happen now. Otherwise, you have these non-AC coaches manufactured today to last you to 2045 at least. For heaven's sake, that should be stopped. And then you work on how you would make it affordable. With one caveat, then in every route, let's say Delhi, Mumbai or Mumbai, some city in Bihar or some city in UP. In every route, have one train for migrant laborers who will not even be able to pay your lowered fare. One non-AC train every route, but with assured seating accommodation. And in my blueprint, it's possible to have about, believe me, 120 seated and 40 to 50 sleeping in one coach. That's 160 people per coach, and have 124 coach train of this type per every route will work. And charge them whatever you charge them today, because your duty first is to the commonest man. And carry them with dignity, not merely saying that these people must travel like this because they don't pay. I don't increase the fare, but let them go like cattle. Sorry. Make up your mind. It's possible. First, make up your mind. How to do it will be possible to know. So much about the regular trains. Then, of course, all EMUs, to my mind, should be air-conditioned. That intention should always also be declared now. So in 10 years, it becomes a reality, because converting existing coaches to air conditioning would not be very profitable. It will not be very easy to do. Would be cumbersome.
Sir, boring है बात मैं क्यों समझा रहे हो ये?
And the fare here, I don't see any harm if the fare matches with metros. After all, metros in Delhi and some other cities has, not in cities like Lucknow and all that, but it still has become, ridership is fairly good and people pay that metro fare. So you can actually go to that fare. And for short distance, once again, MEMUs, whether they all should be air conditioned or on is only a matter of detail, maybe not. Then coming to 400 Vande Bharats. So the announcement is 3 years. It started with 42, then 60 something, then 100, and 75 in 75 weeks. Then whatever 102 number is, कागज पे नंबर बढ़ते जा रहे हैं, मतलब वो 40 से आज की डेट में 400 हो चुके हैं. बनी तीसरी अभी नहीं है, लेकिन बन सकती है. So how do we do this 400? I'm not debating whether it should be done or whether it will be possible. It has to be made possible because it is the intention of the government. So I have this simple formula for this. 1/3 in ICF mainly, and some in RCF, MCF. 1/3 aluminum trains in collaboration with an established rolling stock major, and 1/3 through project of private trains. Before I go to that Vande Bharat, it's also our job to discontinue this more of the same business. And these are simple efforts which we tried at ICF. So what you see here is an AC coach, second from left is continuous window, hardly cost anything extra. And this is the version 1. The version 2, which I don't have a photo, would look even better, but at least the aesthetics of the train improved. I know some rail fans who said they saw it and they were zapped. Then I told them, yes, we made 1520. We had planned to convert, but after my retirement, whatever, I don't want to go into that. But that was discontinued. It was hardly any extra expenditure. Then you have on the left the larger window for non-AC LS coaches. Also better from aesthetics. Some people have complained about a little bit of suffocation in this, but let me tell you, the opening of the windows is same, what we ensured as the regular LS ones, regular non-AC ones. I'll close the slide by saying that I just returned from Sri Lanka yesterday, and I was so happy to see that we've always got flack when we exported trains to Sri Lanka or any other place. It's because we came into comparison with China. This time, Sri Lankan Railways were also happy and proud to learn that they said that the DMUs that we sent to them in 2018 and later have actually excelled in performance, the Chinese rakes, and they are quite happy with that. So this was the team at ICF working on this. All they needed some leadership with support, and they were able to do it. The inherent desire to excel and provide a better rolling stock existed. It needed to be channelized. So ICF is the best candidate, obviously, not because I was there in ICF, because it has a legacy of making self-propelled trains for ages. It is the only unit which has made self-propelled train with AC traction. RCF has just turned out one, which is still not in service. And MCF has never made a self-propelled train. So do not play with this legacy of ICF. Let ICF made at least 50 to 100 and then give something to these other two units. And to my mind, in next 4 years, 3.5 years. So which means 25, 26, we can have 150 Vande Bharat train 18 trains coming out of ICF plus some from the other two units. It's possible, very much feasible. But where will you deploy so many of day trains? You can imagine. Already you are not exploiting it fully by a 160 km/h train being utilized for max speed of 130. The moment you get 150 of them in day version, then they would usually be running. You will get down to running them at 110 km/h track. If that was so, I would redesign train 18 for that speed. And I have some things in mind which one would do, but it will only complicate the matter, so I'm not talking about it now. So it is necessary to develop a sleeper version, which we had started in 2018, but it got discontinued. You can still do it and replace Rajdhanis with them. I don't know if work has started on it. I have been talking about it for a long time, and there is still time to turn it out as train 23, a sleeper version. I will not go too much into this. This is just a matrix. The matrix only covers what I had always believed. We have two types of people. Ajay, how are we with time? 10 more minutes?
Good to go, sir. No problem. Please continue.
No problem. Okay. So, yeah. You see, in As You Like It, there's this character Touchstone, bit of a fool. He says that fool doth think he is wise, but the wise man knows himself to be a fool. And again the fool, astray, himself in 12th night, better a witty fool than a foolish wit. So what I'm trying to say here is, there are two types of people, especially in Indian Railways. One which says, we are good, we can do anything. Anything means anything. And there are others who feel we are no good and we cannot do anything. The truth, ladies and gentlemen, lies somewhere in between. It is better to know what you cannot do, because accepting what you don't know is better than to find excuses when you are unable to do things. In case of train 18, we had made this simple matrix, and we found that in 3 areas we were just not there. I'll not go into the detail. Once we realized that, we engaged consultants who had no interest for future supplies, and they were told that every line you draw, every word you write, you are going to do with ICF people, so that ownership remains with me, IPA remains with you, not with you.
Sir,
and they request you to good design, so they would work with that intention.
Sir, request you to come to presentation mode. It's gone off.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why it happened. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So it's very important to know what we can do ourselves, challenge ourselves to go 20, 30% above that, but do not attempt something like a foolhardy person, or something which is not within your expertise today. I will come to that in respect of high-speed train, but for the time being, for example, the aluminium, India is a big producer of aluminium, but aluminium profiles for an aluminium train is a matter of investment. Unless you have a large demand, nobody is going to invest money to make these profiles. And because you don't make these profiles, because you've never made aluminum trains, there is a technology involved with aluminum welding and so on, which you must learn. You don't know that today. That's why we had figured this train 20 type of contract, where we said we will not debate whether aluminum is good for us. Would be a time to debate, because aluminum, as the speed increases, it's more and more in vogue. There are high-speed trains, some which are still made in stainless steel. There are some lower-speed trains which are made in aluminum. So it's matter of evaluation. Let's not debate something before doing. That's our problem. We keep on debating and don't do. We are a large country with large investment possible. I just told you what kind of investment they have. So go for an aluminum train and limited number. Evaluate later. You will not lose anything, and have that contract. Engage somebody from abroad, but make sure that 2-3 trains are made abroad, whatever number. Rest are made in a ICF or the factory you choose, preferably ICF, and let our staff work with them from design. When the design is made, our people will sit with them all the time, like we did with consultants. And when the manufacturing is done in ICF, it will be premises given to them inside ICF, and let our people work with them, so that by the time they reach the last rake of the order, the entire rake is manufactured by ICF staff. And they are so much, they've mastered that design part, that the next time you need a new aluminum train, they should be able to do it themselves. Now, one may say nobody is going to part with it. You learn from China how they have made everyone to part with their designs. That's a lesson for us. We may not be that much strong in volumes, but we are not so much inferior. I'm also talking about 1/3. That means 130, 125 rakes. We can force anyone in the world, let me tell you, any major, to part with the know-how. And the know why, more importantly. It's defeatist to say ki wo koi nahi dega and all that. This is a big muscle of 125 trains. It's not small. It's all up to us to know how to exploit it. So that would be 1/3 aluminum trains. If they decide today and float a contract, it should be possible for the prototype to be with us by late 2024 or maybe in 2025. We go next 6 years from now, we can have 125 such trains. So not in 3 years, but in 6 years, yes, 125 aluminum trains can be added, which are lighter, durable, aesthetically better, obviously more energy efficient. There's a case, as I said, both ways, whether we need it or not. Make 125 or 100 and debate that after experience. Proof of the pudding is in the eating, not debating. Third one, we still have another 130 or so trains to go to make it up to 400. You would remember that they dilly-dallied. They first had some kind of a honeymoon, and then they dilly-dallied and they totally vamoosed in terms of the private train operation in the country. It was such mulish bureaucracy of Indian Railways, I would say, which totally made this project into a damn squib after talking about it so much. And what did the bidders want? Anybody who's going to invest, we were talking for one sector, 2,500 to 3,000 crores. So at least 2 sectors would have made sense if you're going to acquire rolling stock. 6,000 crores, if somebody is going to invest, he would need an independent regulator. You cannot become a judge yourself. Then they needed more freedom to choose train timing, the revenue model, everything needed a relook, an exit clause. I invest into some 20-25 trains and tomorrow my contract is folding up, then what do I do with those trains? The only people who can use these trains are Indian Railways. What kind of comfort are you giving me in the exit clause? None. And perhaps we had overreached. We should go for some more limited sector. Make rake links such that the same rake can go on all the sector. There were a lot of issues, but it is still doable. There are people willing to invest in private trains, and this can be another mode if we decide today to go with private trains for the high-end sector, all air-conditioned trains. This would use up the capacity in the private sector to build trains. So it's not just Indian Railways manufacturing units, but a huge capacity. You know, we have 3-4. So Bombardier has had one which is part of Alstom, then Alstom. You have BML in the public sector. Then you have Titagarh, which has come up in Kolkata. You have even BHL, which has ambitions, though I would not favor that much. Then you have Medha setting up in Hyderabad, maybe one more. That kind of capacity is being generated in the private sector, and it would be nice to utilize that for Indian Railways. So I hope some movement takes place here. So I'll, as I end my talk, I come to other sectors. So what has happened in metro sector? So metro has become a sign of a progress, and perhaps people have an impression that it draws voters. So we have gone overboard. And my example, I don't have to go far, in my hometown, Lucknow. So imagine they would have spent roughly 5,000, 6,000 crores already. By the time it finishes, it would be 10,000, 12,000 crores invested in a metro system, and the ridership is appalling. Nobody travels in the metro. Why? Reasons, there can be many. So either the evaluation is wrong or whatever. But on the flip side, if that half of that amount, if 5,000 crore were spent on the city to do up the roads, battery buses, to do up signages, to do up so many things, it would start matching a European city. What have we? Don't look at what we got. It's some kind of an ugly metro system in the city. What we have lost is to make one of the cities really a smart city, so to say. This is not in the name. I'm not saying that metro should not be built. I said a greater appraisal definitely is required. And Lucknow can be a test case. Jaipur. You may say that there'll be ridership after 15, 20 years, but that's not part of the planning, was it? It was not. HSR. Once again, we debated 20 years, never got one project. So thanks to this government, we do have one project. You can always say that it's not good for India. I'm not getting into that debate. I'm saying we are again a large country. We are not, I will not like to name any other smaller country, but we are a large country. For us, proof of the pudding must be in the actual eating, not in debating. So why one? We should have one or at least one, two or at least one more project. Complete it. It's a matter of, if the two projects are completed, matter of 2,00,000 crore. Having done that, and let it be completed in, that's what, 7-8 years, and evaluate fully whether these HSR systems are going to actually work for India. Instead of today's plan, which is showing, I don't know, so ambitious and quadrilateral and diagonal, everything going high speed train, whereas the only project you have in hand is getting postponed to, who knows, to 2027 or something, or they open half of it, Ahmedabad to Surat in 2026. No, sir, that's not the way to go. Concentrate on one more and actually make it happen in 7-8 years. With one caveat here, once again, I said, you have to be a witty fool, which means you don't know, you cannot build HSR on your own, especially the rolling stock. But when you do with this kind of spending, at least make sure that after completing two projects, you have the capacity to design on your own. Are we doing that? No. We are going only to do very low-end work here, and we'll be where we are 15 years from now. And should a new HSR project come up, we would again be looking at somebody in Europe or towards Japan or maybe whatever. That's not good. So that also needs review. RRTs is a more serious matter because the same, that the train 18 is not qualified for RRTs because the builder ICF is not qualified. So isn't it a big travesty that in a country where the Prime Minister speaks about a train, when do you have a Prime Minister speaking just about a train? After all, it's just a train. When we were building it, we never thought it was something so great. So why did it receive so much love from the countrymen? That question still needs to be answered. But a train which is spoken of by the Prime Minister from the Red Fort is not a train which you can use for 160 kilometers per hour RRTs because the multinationals rule there. The Ministry of Urban Development and the Ministry of Railways cannot see eye to eye. I don't even know if Ministry of Railways also wants to pursue it. But you can only supply to them if you have supplied to one more country other than your own country. My own country doesn't take my rolling stock and I'm going to supply it to some other country. I'll not speak more. But this is your Atmanirbharta for you as the government sees today. I would strongly say that RRTs should be banned from importing rolling. When I say import, it may be manufactured in India, but the brain, the mind lies in Europe or Japan or someplace. It should be an Indian creation. Must happen. Hyperloop, you may find it funny that I talk about Hyperloop, but I talk about Hyperloop because nobody knows if it's going to be a success. And I don't have any expertise on Hyperloop. I only know it is a burgeoning passenger rolling stock system. And we must take lead somewhere. Let us take lead here. What is it? 50,000 crores between, let's say, Mumbai, Pune. I'm just belting out a number without really going into detail of it. But let's say Mumbai, Pune. If it is 50,000 crores, go ahead, strongly get somebody to invest, be a leader in this, so that if Hyperloop actually succeeds, then you are ahead of everyone else, because for you, the Hyperloop has more value, whereas in China or Korea or Japan or Europe, it does not have that value because they already have high-speed train of 350 kilometers per hour. For you, it is leapfrogging from 110 kilometers per hour to whatever, 1,000 kilometers per hour. View it like this. Don't even talk about making, engage somebody, but again, learn so that the next project is done by you entirely. I'll not even go into the merit of this hydrogen train business because I'm sure this project is going to fail. But it is so funny because you are electrifying at this speed that you have to stable your working diesel locomotives. So what for are we going to have these hydrogen trains with them? I mean, you cannot even run your existing diesel locomotives. You will electrify everything. So where does it? So it doesn't make sense to me. But I leave it at that. And before I end, two small things from that presentation. There is a concept of freight EMU which I have not understood. Neither are the people who are going to write the specification have understood. Only somebody from Japan can explain it to us. But the very idea, although there's something going to be some investment, we have to think as to when you are going to have so many train sets, you will have a lot of locomotives released for service. And I'll come to that also. Why would a freight EMU make sense? Because what is freight EMU? That also I don't understand. A rake with 3 locomotives with distributed power. That's also that's also some kind of a freight EMU. In Japan, they have what you see on the screen, where I think some of the wagons have a small cubicle which makes the wagons self-propelled. So without really understanding the concept fully, I have to perhaps read about it or learn from somebody else. But I think this concept is not going to work in India because it does not make sense at that, because after all, EMUs are going to be more expensive than loco haul trains. Don't forget that. Then another one is this cargo liner, as you see on your screen. So cargo and in the lower deck and passengers on the upper deck. How will you handle all this cargo on stations? Even today, you have 2 parcel vans and the end becomes clogged and so unfriendly for passengers. Are you going to handle all this parcel all over the platform? You can imagine what would be the state of the platform and the passengers if you have cargo, the parcels all over the platform. I have not understood this concept also. I leave it at that because these projects, I'm sure, would be pursued and die their own natural deaths. And if they succeed, I would learn something from that. Last slide is from 700-800 locomotives, we are going to 1,200 locomotives per year. So I have nothing against electric loco production, but if you are going to have so many train sets with self-propelled versions of others, as I talked about, a lot of locomotives will be released. Why do we want to increase the population of locomotives when we are not able to use the existing locomotives properly? Not only diesel, even electric locos, but this is what is the plan and what kind of freight traffic we are going to carry, that we are going to have so many locomotives manufactured, is not standing to any scrutiny today, perhaps needs a deeper evaluation. And that brings me really to the end. I brought in this electric loco slide only to show that perhaps if you have decided to have so many self-propelled trains, perhaps so many manufacture of so many locomotives would perhaps not make sense. And that was my point here. So I come to the end. And as I always say, speaking is one thing, but the pleasure always lied in the doing. And I was happy that my team and ICFA was able to provide me with that. I will be ever grateful for that. Thank you very much. I
Thank
will
you very
stop,
much.
share now, Ajay. And
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir, for your very detailed, in-depth dive out kind of sharing of the story of Train 18, and not only that, but going ahead and looking through the crystal glass and seeing how the technologies are going to come up. There are some questions which are coming. Before we take questions, sir, I have a question, because we see the Train 18, but you did mention the role of the ICF team in the last. But any a wonder of technology like Train 18, it has a a total ecosystem of not only the technology per se, but the back-end suppliers and all. How you manage to put them all together for this kind of product?
Yeah, okay, Ajay. So the important thing is, so I was very fortunate because I was bequeathed, nothing of my doing, a team of officers and staff, particularly officers, staff, of course, because they were there and they were bubbling to do something. It was only channelization. So looking back, if I was asked from the core team, I would like to change even one team member, I would say no. So that's fortune. And we had this realization, and the staff, as I said, it was ennui written on their forehead, that doing more of the same. This was something new for them, and they took up that challenge with energy. And as you said, we had this realization, but unlike earlier years, the industry had matured in India related with the trains industry, in terms of propulsion, in terms of all other brake system, in terms of the shell design, in terms of other accessories. It had really matured on their own through their R&D or collaboration, whatever. And it was a matter of exploiting them. And I was very happy that we were able to place orders for equipment without giving them final drawings, with the footnote that we will give you final drawing after you are already manufacturing. So you may have to do modifications. You may find that you are able to do with less material. You may find you have to do more material, but that's your baby. They were many of them were happy doing it, because they knew that they were working for a game changer project. And it was not just future business, but also the pride of doing something like this, which egged them on. So really thankful to the associate industry also. Absolutely. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, sir. Now I'll take question from the audience. Mr. Vijay Rana is there. He has asked the question: MCF had awarded a contract to a Korean firm for an aluminum shell-based PG coach. He just wants to know whether this is true, or if any updates on outcome are there, if you're aware of.
So without trying to denigrate, although I have the mind to do that, but you see, this is what happens when you do something like a fool. I cannot say anything more than that. So it is doing and undoing a thing at the same time. You are entering into a dud contract in a unit which has never made a self-propelled unit, engaging a contractor which has never made a 160-kilometer train. What can any contract be dudder than this? But anyway, so and then by doing that, you are stopping others you are setting up such a low benchmark that it stops others to pursue that contract. So I would say only this much: this was bound to be a failure. I believe it has failed. If it doesn't fail and it comes to fruition, I'll be happy, but I don't think so. That's all I will say, that it was a dud contract to begin with, and it met its just end. That's it.
Okay, sir. I have seen many of your videos, and you have never tried to be politically correct.
Ajay, the biggest, I have a lot of respect for Mr. Raina, so he's in the same boat. The biggest pleasure of retirement is that you are free to speak what you want, because you are under no obligation to make anything politically correct.
Sir, we are almost just got 5 minutes of session left. So I'll quickly take one more question. It is from Aritra Bag. He has asked two questions. When you were in ICF, what happened to ICF Haldia demo factory? And the second one also I'll shoot off just now. If ICF can make train 18 like train, then why ICF, probably he wants, he's meaning why ICF is lacking in making AC metros of international design. Over to you, sir.
Okay, so number one about Haldia, the shells used to go from ICF and the interiors were done in Haldia factory, either through a contract or their own workmen, I forget. And this was the stage. I don't know what happened later, whether for whatever political reason and so on, Latour was, lifted up and Haldia was went into disfavor. I really don't know. So this is all I would say about Haldia. All the shells used to go from ICF. As for metro, okay, so that's a very good question. Just like RRTS, metro has the same problem. The first metro of the country was designed by ICF in 1980s. The Kolkata metro. It stood the test of the time. Some of the last trick has just been phased out. You can abuse it, but this is what served the city. Today, once again, ICF or any other PU of Indian Railways is not qualified to bid for metro. A lot of questions are asked, whereas similar question you would have supplied there, you would have supplied here and there. I'm not saying the Kolkata metro that ICF gives is a great metro of world standard. It's a beginning. It's an air-conditioned metro for Kolkata city. May have its problem, but it's the first baby step. You treat your own factories like your own baby, like your own brother, and let them learn. I'm not saying they are great today, but let them learn to make India truly Atmanirbhar. But the environment, the Atmanirbhar spirit to order metro trains on ICF does not exist. Only Kolkata metro, because it's part of Indian Railways. So that's a sad story, but that's how it is.
Thank you very much, sir. Perhaps your talk is the only talk which is almost going to conclude on the dot. We have just got 1 or 2 minutes here. I would like to thank for all your presentation, both the mind part and the heart part of it. Thank you very much, sir.
Pleasure, Ajay, and I'm happy that you kept your hawk eye a little away and did not, and let me indulge a little bit more and overshoot my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Over to you, Pandey, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mani. And
Thanks, sir.
Very passionate and a very engrossing talk. A small comment, normally the session after lunch is generally very sleepy sort of one. This was not a sleepy session at all. And even though you talked about eating and not debating, good word for me to also learn. And thank you for having conducted it so well.
Sir, just one comment, sir. You are the first speaker to hit a century. We have crossed 112.
Yeah, I wanted to say that. That was one more. Yeah, so you are the first century.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, thank you. My pleasure all the way. Okay. My pleasure all the way.
So,